You've embarrassed this family for the last time. Pack your things and go." My mother-in-law said it loud enough for the entire Thanksgiving table to hear. 43 people. Every fork stopped moving. I looked at my husband. He looked at his plate. That was the moment I understood two things at once. The first was that no one at that table was going to defend me. The second was that I was done trying to earn a place at it. My name is Brooke Callahan, and I was 31 years old when my husband's family decided I wasn't worth keeping around. But this story didn't start at Thanksgiving. It started 4 years earlier, the day I married into a family that had already made up their minds about me, before I walked through the door. My husband's name is Preston. We met in our mid-20s, fell fast, got engaged faster. He was warm, funny, attentive. Everything I wanted. His family was a different matter entirely. His mother, who insisted everyone call her by her first name, Lorraine, ran her household the way some people run corporations. With metrics. With expectations. With a very clear organizational chart that I was never going to climb. His father was quieter, but no less judgmental. He measured people by their credentials. Where did you go to school? What's your title? Who do you know? I had grown up in a working-class town in rural Ohio, put myself through a state school on loans and part-time jobs, and spent my 20s building a catering business out of my apartment kitchen. None of that showed up on the kind of resume Lorraine kept in her head. Preston's sister was worse in a subtler way. She never said anything directly unkind. She just had this talent for asking questions that weren't really questions. So you cook for a living? Like, professionally? Do you have employees? Or is it just you? I always loved how Preston dates women who are so grounded. That was their word for me. It meant, not one of us. For the first 2 years, I tried. I brought food to every gathering, and not just any food. I spent days on it. I researched what Lorraine liked, what Preston's father's dietary restrictions were, what his cousins were allergic to. I showed up early and helped set up. I stayed late and helped clean. I learned their family's inside jokes and laughed at the right moments. I did everything a person is supposed to do when they want to belong somewhere. It was never enough. Not because I wasn't capable, but because the verdict had already been delivered before I ever arrived. I wasn't the right kind of person. I didn't come from the right background. I hadn't gone to the right school. I was building a catering business, which they found either amusing or mildly suspicious, and either way it didn't count. Preston never stood up to them. That's the part I have to be honest about. He wasn't cruel. He wasn't even unkind. He just had this lifelong habit of going quiet whenever his mother spoke, and I had spent 2 years mistaking his silence for neutrality. It wasn't neutral. It was a choice he kept making, over and over, and I kept forgiving him for it because I loved him, and because I told myself things would change. They didn't change. The Thanksgiving dinner was our 4th as a married couple. Lorraine had taken over the planning the way she always did, and the way she always did, it left no room for anything I might contribute. I had offered to bring dessert. She said the bakery was handling dessert. I had offered to help with setup. She said the caterers were handling setup. She hired caterers for family Thanksgiving, which I found darkly funny given what I did for a living, and which she absolutely knew when she made that decision. I sat at the far end of the table near the cousins, no one talked to, and tried to make the best of it. I had been trying to make the best of things for 4 years at that point, and I was very, very tired. Then Preston's aunt asked me a polite enough question. She wanted to know how the business was going. I started to answer. I had actually just landed our largest corporate account that month, a downtown Chicago firm that needed catering for 200 people every quarter. And I was genuinely proud of it. Lorraine interrupted before I finished my second sentence. Oh, Brooke always makes her little projects sound bigger than they are. The table laughed. Not everyone, but enough. I waited to see if Preston would say anything. He picked up his wine glass. So I kept talking. I said the account was worth roughly $300,000 annually, and that we'd been approached by 2 other firms in the same building. I wasn't bragging. I was just answering the question that had been asked. Lorraine's expression shifted. Something flickered behind her eyes that I didn't have a name for yet. Then she set her fork down, folded her hands, and said, with the particular precision of someone who had been waiting for the right moment, "You know, nobody here is impressed by numbers. Some of us built this family's reputation through things that actually last. Not cooking parties for corporate offices. Cooking parties." Preston's father cleared his throat. "Let's not do this tonight." But Lorraine was already going. "I've been patient. 4 years of watching you treat this family like an opportunity. You've never once made Preston a priority. You've never once." "Mom," Preston said it quietly. One word. That was all he offered. Not a defense, not a correction, not even eye contact with me. Just the one word aimed at the floor. Lorraine turned to look at me. "You've embarrassed this family for the last time. Pack your things and go." I put my napkin on the table. I stood up slowly, because I wasn't going to let my hands shake in front of her. I picked up my coat from the hook near the door. I said nothing. There was nothing to say. I had tried saying things for 4 years, and it had accomplished exactly nothing. And the only power I had left in that room was deciding how I walked out of it. I walked out calmly. I sat in my car in their driveway for 11 minutes because I didn't trust myself to drive yet. Then I drove home, called my business partner, told her what happened, and spent the rest of that evening going over our quarterly projections because I needed something concrete to hold on to. Preston called at 11:15 p.m. He said his mother had gone too far. He said he was sorry. I told him I needed some time to think, and I meant it. And over the next several weeks, I thought about everything very carefully. I thought about the 4 years of dinners I had brought, and the comments made about them. I thought about the questions that weren't questions from his sister. I thought about the way his father had never once asked me a single thing about my work, not once in 4 years, while asking Preston questions about his law firm every single time we saw them. I thought about Preston's quiet, all of it. Every instance, every moment, I had pushed down and explained away because I wanted it to work. I also thought about my business. While I had been spending energy trying to earn approval from people who had already decided to withhold it, my company had quietly grown into something real. We had 11 full-time employees. We had an annual revenue that year of just under $2 million. We had a waitlist of clients. We were being approached by a hospitality group in the city about a potential acquisition, which I hadn't told anyone yet, not even Preston, because I was still in the early stages of evaluating it. I had built something while they were busy doubting me. And the only reason I hadn't seen it as clearly as I should have was because I had been too focused on getting into a room that didn't want me. It took 3 months. During those 3 months, Preston and I had a lot of hard conversations. I'm not going to pretend it was simple, because it wasn't. He was genuinely trying, genuinely remorseful, genuinely seeing for the first time the patterns I had been living with for years. I believed him. I also believed it had taken his mother saying it out loud at a dinner table for him to see something I had been showing him quietly for a long time. We went to counseling. We talked. I set conditions, he agreed to them. And then, 5 months after Thanksgiving, something happened that I never planned for. Preston's company merged with a larger firm. Part of the merger involved a celebration, a major client dinner, one of those events that takes months to plan. 5 courses, 200 guests, downtown venue, the kind of event that firms throw when they want to make a statement. The partner overseeing the event asked Preston if he had a caterer recommendation. Preston said he did. He gave them my company's name. I want to be clear, I didn't know he had done this until the inquiry came through our booking system. I almost flagged it as a conflict of interest. But the event director who reached out was professional. Our pricing was in range, and after a call with their team, it was clear they had done their due diligence and selected us on merit. I disclosed the personal connection. They didn't care. We took the contract. The dinner was on a Friday in April. I was there the whole evening, the way I always was at events of that scale. Not visible, not working the front, but moving through the kitchen, managing the team, making sure every detail ran the way it was supposed to. The food was exactly right. The timing was exactly right. Everything was exactly right. I didn't know Preston's family would be there. He had mentioned his parents might attend as guests of one of the senior partners. I hadn't thought much of it. It was a large event. I was in the back. There was no reason our paths would cross. They crossed. An hour before dessert, I came out of the kitchen to check a table set up near the private dining room. I was wearing the same thing I always wore at these events. Dark pants, white chef's coat with our company logo on the chest. One of our servers had called in sick and I was covering a short gap near the entrance before the backup arrived. I heard Lorraine's voice before I saw her. She was talking to the partner's wife, that particular tone she had when she was performing graciousness in public. Then she turned and saw me. The expression on her face went through several stages in about 3 seconds. Confusion first, then recognition, then something I had never seen on her face before, a kind of recalibration, like a system rebooting. She looked at my coat. She looked at the logo. She looked at the room around her, the room that was impeccably set, the food that had already received 2 compliments she'd overheard, the evening that was running like clockwork. Then she looked back at me. I didn't say anything immediately. A server passed with a tray. I checked that the linen on the nearest table was perfectly straight because it was, and because I needed a second to decide who I was going to be in this moment. Then I turned to face her. Good evening. She opened her mouth and closed it. The partner's wife looked between us. Do you two know each other? This is my son's wife. The partner's wife lit up. Oh, you're the owner? We've heard so many wonderful things. This dinner is extraordinary. The salmon alone, she went on for a moment. Lorraine stood very still. When the partner's wife moved away to find her husband, Lorraine and I were briefly alone in that corner of the room. How long? She said quietly. How long has it really a question? I answered it anyways. About 6 years. She looked at the room again. She was doing the math. I could see it. The staff, the setup, the scale. Why didn't you ever? I did. Several times. You weren't interested. The silence that followed was not the comfortable kind. Preston appeared at the end of the hallway. Someone had told him I was out front. He stopped when he saw us together, and the expression on his face was impossible to read, somewhere between relief and held breath. His father found us a few minutes later. He didn't say anything for a long moment. Then he asked, very quietly, how many people I employed. I told him, 11 full-time, 7 part-time, growing. He nodded slowly, the way men like him do when they are processing something that doesn't fit the box they built years ago. Preston's sister appeared last. She looked at my coat, looked at the room, looked at me and said, well, I didn't know. I know you didn't, I said. That's sort of the point. Lorraine asked to speak with me privately before the evening ended. We found a quiet corner near the service hallway. She stood very straight, the way she always did, but something underneath it had shifted. I owe you an apology, she said. Her voice was measured. She had clearly been composing since the hallway. I waited. The things I said at Thanksgiving were unkind and they weren't fair. I made assumptions about you that I should not have made. I appreciated that she said it. I also knew that it had taken walking into a room I had built and eating food I had made for 200 people for her to arrive at this conclusion, and I didn't know exactly how to hold that. Not with anger. The anger had burned down slowly over 5 months. What was left was something clearer. I told her I appreciated the apology. I told her I hoped we could move forward. I meant both of those things. But I also said something I hadn't planned to say. I said, I need you to understand something. I stopped trying to impress you a long time ago. What you see tonight, this company, these people, this room. I built all of this while I was also trying to make you like me. And at some point I realized that the building mattered and the liking didn't. I'm not saying that to be unkind. I'm saying it so we're both clear about where I stand going forward. She was quiet for a moment. Then she said, that's fair. 2 words. Not much. But from her, I knew what they cost. Preston found me near the kitchen entrance after the last guests had left. The team was breaking down the setup around us, the comfortable noise of an event successfully concluded. He put his hand on my arm. You okay? I thought about it honestly. I was tired. I was also, somewhere underneath the tired, more settled than I had felt in years. Yeah, I said. I actually am. We didn't fix everything that night. That's not how it works. The months after had their own complications, ongoing counseling, a new set of boundaries with his family, difficult conversations that couldn't be had all at once. His mother kept her word in some ways and struggled in others. His father became, unexpectedly, one of the more genuinely curious people about my business. He started asking real questions. I started giving real answers. Something shifted there, slowly. The acquisition went through the following fall. The hospitality group made an offer I couldn't ignore, and I negotiated terms that kept me on as a partner and preserved the jobs of my full-time team. I signed the papers on a Tuesday morning in a law office downtown, and when I walked out onto the sidewalk and stood in the cold October air, I felt something I hadn't quite expected. Not triumph. Not the satisfaction of having proved anything to anyone. Just the quiet, solid feeling of knowing what I had built and knowing why I had built it. I didn't build it to show anyone. Not Lorraine, not Preston's father, not a single person at that Thanksgiving table. I built it because the work was real and the work was mine, and every decision I had made in 6 years, dropping the accounts that didn't serve us, hiring the team I believed in, turning down easier money for better clients. Every single one of those decisions had been made from the inside out. Not for approval. Not for an audience. The people who had doubted me were still in my life, in various configurations and various stages of reckoning with what they hadn't seen. Some of them were genuinely trying. I let them try. But the thing I came to understand, standing on that sidewalk in October, was something nobody tells you when you're in the middle of fighting to be seen. The moment you stop needing the people who doubted you to finally understand you. That's not defeat. That's not giving up. That's the first morning you wake up, and the work is just the work again. Not a statement, not a rebuttal, not a proof of anything. It's just yours. And that, more than any dinner or any apology or any room full of 200 impressed people, was the thing I had been building toward all along.